Nearly 2 months into the season, every miner in the Klondike is on the gold, except Tony.
It's ready to go. All we have to do is drag it in place, put a pump in, and we're going. We're golden. Literally.
The U.S. government shut down Tony Beets, crushing his entire season in an instant. Indian River was his gold mine, his future, his lifeline, but all of it vanished when inspectors arrived and shut him down on the spot. No warning, no second chances, just a complete and brutal halt to everything he had worked for. Tune in to see how one crushing government shutdown led to a battle for survival and the shocking move Parker made that changed everything. The Klondike's unforgiving gamble. The trouble started long before the inspectors showed up. Indian River had been a challenge from day one. The claim was flooded, forcing the crew to spend weeks pumping out water before they could even think about running dirt. Equipment breakdowns became part of the daily routine. The massive wash plant had been sitting idle for too long, and getting it up and running was a nightmare. Every single part had to be checked, every bolt tightened, every piece put back together like a giant puzzle. The crew pushed through exhaustion, knowing that every wasted minute was another ounce of gold slipping through their fingers. But just as hope returned, the ground let out a deep, ominous rumble. Something was coming. Just when it seemed like they were finally turning a corner, another problem popped up. The operation had been running on a water license that wasn't fully approved. It had been overlooked, buried in a mountain of paperwork. But the inspectors didn't miss it. They arrived unannounced, walked through the site with their clipboards and serious faces, and within minutes everything came to a grinding halt. Without the right permits, Indian River was shut down on the spot. No negotiations, no second chances. Just like that, Tony's entire season was in jeopardy. The crew was in shock. They had put in countless hours fighting through mechanical failures, brutal weather, and exhaustion, only to be told they couldn't mine. This wasn't just a minor hiccup, it was a catastrophe. The shutdown meant no paychecks, no bonuses, and for some, no reason to stick around. Morale plummeted, and Tony had to make a decision fast. With Indian River off limits, there was only one place left to turn: Paradise Hill. The problem was, Paradise Hill wasn't ready. The roads were in terrible shape, making it nearly impossible to haul the massive machines over. The equipment itself was in desperate need of repairs after sitting idle for weeks, and time, there was barely any of it left. The season was slipping away, and every hour spent fixing things instead of mining was another setback. But there was no other choice. If there was any hope of salvaging the season, they had to get Paradise Hill running immediately. Work started before dawn and didn't stop until long after the sun had set. Every available hand was put to work fixing machines, clearing roads, and setting up the wash plant. It was exhausting, frustrating, and at times seemed impossible. There were days when it felt like everything was working against them: a busted hydraulic line here, a broken conveyor belt there, a pump that refused to stay running. It was a never-ending battle against time and machinery. Meanwhile, Parker was having the season of his life. His claim was running smoother than ever. Every detail had been carefully planned out, every piece of equipment was maintained to perfection, and the gold was rolling in at a rate that made everyone take notice. While Tony and his crew were scrambling just to stay afloat, Parker was stacking up gold bars like it was the easiest thing in the world. The contrast was brutal. One operation was running like a dream while the other was barely holding on. At Paradise Hill, things weren't improving fast enough. The wash plant was finally up and running, but getting consistent pay dirt through it was another challenge altogether. Water management became a nightmare. The site needed a steady flow of water to wash the dirt properly, but delays in getting the right pumps meant makeshift solutions had to be thrown together on the fly. It wasn't efficient, and it certainly wasn't ideal, but at this point, they had no other options. The pressure on Tony was immense. He had built his reputation on being one of the toughest, most resilient miners in the Klondike, but this season was testing him in ways he had never imagined. The crew was exhausted, the gold count was nowhere near where it needed to be, and the shutdown at Indian River had put them in a hole so deep, climbing out of it felt almost impossible. Yet giving up was never on the table. Every man on that crew knew what was at stake, and despite the setbacks, they kept pushing forward. As the days passed, the operation at Paradise Hill started to stabilize. The equipment was finally running without constant breakdowns, the crew had found a rhythm, and the gold count, while still lower than expected, was at least moving in the right direction. But the damage from Indian River couldn't be undone. No matter how hard they worked, there just wasn't enough time left in the season to make up for everything they had lost. When the final cleanup came, the results were clear. It wasn't enough. They had managed to pull some gold, but nowhere near what Tony had planned. It was a bitter end to a season that had started with so much promise. The Klondike doesn't care about hard work or determination, it only cares about results. And this time, the results just weren't there. Parker, on the other hand, had crushed it. His careful planning, disciplined approach, and well-maintained equipment had paid off. His final gold tally was staggering, and he walked away with one of his best seasons yet. The difference between the two miners had never been clearer. One had fought tooth and nail just to keep things running, while the other had executed a flawless season from start to finish. Tony had been through rough seasons before, but this one hurt more than most. The shutdown at Indian River had been a devastating blow, one that had thrown everything into chaos. But if there was one thing Tony knew how to do, it was to keep going. The Klondike had beaten him down before, and he had always found a way to come back stronger. Next season, there would be new plans, new claims, and another chance to prove that he was still one of the best in the business. Because no matter how tough the Klondike gets, quitting has never been an option. Tony thought this season would be different. Modern machines, old challenges. The plan seemed solid at first. Move the entire operation, get the massive wash plant running, and rake in the gold. But the challenges hit hard and fast. The ground was flooded, delaying everything, and the wash plant, a rusty beast from another era, turned into a nightmare to rebuild. Days turned into weeks, money drained faster than water through a sluice, and the crew's frustration grew with each passing moment. To make matters worse, a water license hiccup slashed their operation from 15 acres to just one measly acre. Imagine being promised an all-you-can-eat buffet, but only getting a single cracker. That's what he was up against. The inspectors shut him down, leaving him stuck in a sea of paperwork and red tape. Months of planning and endless effort were wiped out in an instant, and his frustration boiled over. But anger doesn't fix legal issues, and the Indian River claim was officially a bust. Meanwhile, over at Parker's operation, it was a completely different story. Parker, the young hotshot, ran his mining crew like a well-oiled machine. His gear was state-of-the-art, his plans were solid, and his team knew exactly what they were doing. While setbacks plagued Indian River, Parker was pulling in gold like it was falling from the sky. Cleanup after cleanup, the gold kept piling up. His operation wasn't just running smoothly, it was thriving. The difference between the two miners was stark. The old-school style, big risks, big gambles, looked outdated in comparison to Parker's modern, data-driven approach. Parker wasn't just digging for gold, he was strategizing, planning, and innovating. His investments in advanced tech and training paid off big time, making his operation efficient and wildly successful. Back at the struggling camp, things weren't getting any better. With Indian River shut down, the focus shifted to Paradise Hill, the backup claim. But even there, challenges piled up. Equipment left idle for weeks, needed repairs, and water management turned into a constant headache. Every delay felt like another nail in the season's coffin. The crew's morale plummeted and tempers flared. Leadership style, intense, demanding, and often abrasive, added to the tension. Some crew members thrived under the pressure, but others struggled to keep up. Despite the setbacks, the team pushed forward with sheer determination. They managed to scrape some gold together at Paradise Hill, but it was nowhere near the 6,000 ounces hoped for. The season ended with a bitter sense of disappointment. The king of the Klondike had taken a serious hit, both in profits and pride. Parker, on the other hand, wrapped up his season with record-breaking numbers. His crew worked seamlessly, each task flowing into the next like clockwork. Parker's investments in cutting-edge tech paid off, with mobile wash plants and advanced monitoring systems maximizing efficiency. While the struggling team patched up problems, Parker's crew kept hitting gold-rich ground, turning every cleanup into a jaw-dropping success. As winter crept back in and the machines fell silent, the miners had time to reflect. For some, this season was a harsh wake-up call. The Klondike wasn't the same place it had been for years. The game was changing, and to stay in it, adaptation was key. Parker's success was a glaring reminder of what the future of mining looked like: strategy, precision, and adaptability. Old-school methods weren't enough to compete with Parker's forward-thinking approach. The young miner had proven that gold mining was no longer just about brute force, it was about smart planning and staying ahead of the curve. The Klondike's unforgiving landscape demanded more than grit. It required innovation and efficiency. And Parker had it in spades. Looking ahead, the path was clear: evolve or get left behind. The lessons from this season, careful planning, attention to detail, and a willingness to embrace change, were essential for success. Whether recovery was possible remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: the Klondike didn't wait for anyone. For Parker, the season was a triumph. He'd set a new standard for gold mining in the Klondike, proving that the future belonged to those who embraced it. As the snow covered the ground once again, Parker could look ahead with confidence, knowing that he was shaping the future of the industry. The others, on the other hand, were left to pick up the pieces and figure out how to reclaim their place in the ever-changing world of gold mining. The struggles at Indian River highlighted just how critical proper preparation had become. The operation faced constant breakdowns, from malfunctioning belts to engine failures. The wash plant's outdated design made even small repairs a drawn-out ordeal, and the lack of spare parts on site meant delays stretched even further. Meanwhile, the crew's exhaustion was impossible to ignore. Long hours, cold nights, and constant pressure pushed them to their limits. Still, they pushed forward, determined to salvage what they could. Over at Paradise Hill, the problems weren't much better. The site itself posed challenges, with uneven terrain and tricky water flow patterns complicating every step of the process. The crew's ingenuity kept things running, barely. Makeshift solutions were the order of the day, but the Band-Aid fixes couldn't cover up the deeper issues. Every minute felt like a race against time, with winter's icy grip closing in fast. On the other side of the Klondike, another operation showcased just how far the industry had come. The use of advanced technology gave it a distinct edge. Soil analysis tools pinpointed the richest areas to mine, while drones provided real-time updates on site conditions. These innovations didn't just save time, they maximized results. The team embraced these tools, using them to refine their strategies and maintain an impressive level of efficiency. Leadership played a significant role in its success. A calm, focused demeanor set the tone for the entire operation. Crew members felt valued and supported, which translated into a sense of pride in their work. Training sessions ensured everyone was on the same page, and clear communication kept misunderstandings to a minimum. The ability to balance ambition with practicality was a key factor in achieving a record-breaking season. As the season came to a close, the contrast between outcomes couldn't have been more striking. Setbacks served as a sobering reminder of how quickly things could go wrong in the Klondike. On the other hand, success demonstrated the power of adaptability and forward thinking. The lessons from this season would shape the future of gold mining in the region, setting a new standard for what it took to thrive in one of the world's most challenging environments. As one season ends, the fight to survive and succeed is just getting started. A tale of two mines. The Klondike goldfields were all about grit, guts, and big gambles. Winter hit, snow blanketed the ground, and suddenly everything ground to a halt. For some miners, this was the time when the noise of machines gave way to the noise inside their heads. Questions, doubts, and plans for what was coming next. For others, winter wasn't just about hunkering down, it was about setting up for the next big score. The season ended in a mess for one operation. Inspectors came down hard, shaking their heads at old rigs and outdated methods. They handed over a list longer than a grocery receipt of everything that needed fixing. Every item on that list screamed "money pit," and the operator knew it. The site had bled its budget dry. Piles of gold, probably worth hundreds of thousands, had been dumped into keeping the operation afloat, but now it was in the red. Debts weren't just looming, they were growling. Meanwhile, another miner was living on the flip side of the coin. Where one saw bills and breakdowns, another saw gold. Big gold. The season had ended with mountains of shiny stuff, enough to make anyone's jaw drop. But there was no sitting back and enjoying the view. Plans were already in motion. Consultants were called in, their expertise dissecting the season to identify what worked and what didn't. Every insight was absorbed and acted upon. The off-season was a frenzy of activity. New technology was acquired, rigs and machines upgraded to make them faster, bigger, and better. It wasn't just about fixing stuff, it was about building an empire. New patches of land were hunted down, ones with dirt practically glittering with promise. Each deal was another chess move, setting up for a win. For others, winter meant heavy meetings with the crew. Talks about cutting costs and tightening belts filled the air. Loyalty was on shaky ground. Keeping the team together wasn't just about good vibes, it was about survival. Every member had to believe that next season wouldn't be a repeat of this mess. The tone wasn't the usual gruffness. It was softer, almost desperate, a rare sight in the harsh realities of mining life. As one miner patched up morale, another patched up the future. Focus wasn't just on surviving another season, it was on being unstoppable. Downtime was turned into go time, ensuring readiness for the challenges ahead. When spring rolled back around, the stage was set. One miner faced the uphill battle of a lifetime, trying to dig out of a hole both literally and financially. Inspectors would be back and leniency wasn't expected. Equipment barely held together, the budget was tighter than a drum, and crew faith was shaky at best. Every decision had to count, or it could mean the end of the line. The other was ready to hit the ground running. Shiny new equipment stood primed and ready, claims were locked down, and the team was raring to go. This wasn't just about making gold, it was about dominating the competition. The Klondike remained a land of dreams and disasters. On one side, a veteran fought to stay relevant, battling the weight of old-school methods and modern-day expectations. On the other, a rising star used every tool available to rewrite what success looked like. This wasn't just a season of mining, it was a showdown. And in the Klondike, only one thing mattered: who came out on top when the snow melted and the gold started flowing again. He tried to negotiate with suppliers, wheeling and dealing for parts at a discount, but they weren't biting. Most of them had already written him off as a lost cause. Tony's debts weren't just owed to banks, he owed favors and promises to people who had helped him out when times were tough. And now they were all calling those favors in, leaving Tony scrambling to keep his head above water. Parker's winter looked like a completely different world. While Tony spent his days worrying, Parker was busy planning his empire's expansion. He didn't just upgrade his rigs, he revolutionized them. The new machines were faster, sleeker, and capable of processing more dirt in less time. Parker's strategy was all about efficiency. He didn't want to just mine gold, he wanted to mine it better, smarter, and faster than anyone else. His consultants played a key role in this. They didn't just crunch numbers, they brought ideas to the table that Parker hadn't even considered. One consultant suggested a new method of layering the dirt for processing, which could increase yield by 20%. Another pointed out how minor adjustments in his water usage could save thousands of gallons while keeping operations running smoothly. Every tweak, every adjustment was aimed at perfection. Parker also spent a good chunk of his off-season scouting for new claims. He didn't want to put all his eggs in one basket. His goal was diversification. If one site didn't produce as expected, another could pick up the slack. He traveled miles across the Klondike, analyzing soil samples and studying the land's history. Parker knew that striking a deal on the right claim could mean the difference between a good season and a record-breaking one. Will Tony's uncertainty or Parker's confidence lead to greater success in the end? Whose leadership style would you follow? Leave your thoughts in the comments, like and subscribe.